Walking Stick Library presents Can I Grow My Own Produce? And Does It Pay? With your librarian hostess with the mostest, Eileen Kramer. And remember, you can catch this stream live on Twitch.
And this was interesting because I was watching Marjorie, whom I like. I like her delivery. I don't always agree with her. I don't like that she lets her cats roam around outside with bird flu going on. But I like her delivery. I don't always agree with what she's doing. But she's got an original message. She's got a good style. I don't have to agree with her. In fact, I'm going to dispute with her tonight. But let's see what she's got to say. And this isn't just about Robert F. Kennedy. This is about what we could all do to be healthy, or what she thinks we could all do to be healthy. This is also about workflow, because this is going to take some workflow to make it work. Go.
Healthy again. There's no doubt. That's the Maha movement. America healthy again. There's no doubt. That's the Maha movement.
Wait, I'm going to restart this at the beginning. Sorry about that, folks.
There's no doubt. That's the Maha movement. But we've got to start telling the truth, and we've got to face some realities. And the first reality is that health is actually very, very simple. And in this video, I'm going to go over the very first principles that we need to implement for the Maha movement to work. Now, there are many things that contribute to disease, no doubt about it. Things that get sprayed on you or air, emotional problems, stress is a huge contributor to disease. You know, the emotional things that are going on, the things that you consume with the news can cause all kinds of issues. But the most fundamental thing that causes disease is going to be what you put into your body. So what you're eating and drinking. And that is the most basic, primal, biggest avenue for health or for disease. And fortunately, that breaks down into two very simple things. One is nutrition. You need more nutrition. And two, you need to reduce toxicity. So at the physical level, it's very, very simple. I'm going to insert a chart here and show you why America is completely unhealthy right now and why it's obese. So you can see that for at least...
I'm going to freeze this because I have a copy of this chart, and we're going to run it down and find out where it came from and who did it, and what it's talking about.
The last century, the amount of nutrition in the food has been dropping. By the 1950s, we were about half the level of nutrient density. By the 2000s, there's no nutritional density in your food whatsoever. And then you can also see conversely that the amounts of disease are just skyrocketing. In fact, it's getting high off the charts there. So we're talking cancer, heart disease, diabetes, all the different diseases of civilization. It used to be people would say, oh, if you go to the grocery store and you're a perimeter shopper, you're okay. That's actually not true anymore either. So what do? And that's why I've been such a big proponent of backyard food production, because growing your own healthy food is something that you can do. You don't need the government, you don't need the military, you don't need the industrial complex. It's something that you can do, you can get started with today. And even if you don't have a backyard, there's a lot you can do on a patio, or if you're only indoors in an apartment or a condominium, there's also a ton of things that you can do to start growing your own food. But if we want to make America healthy again, we have got to start with the food supply, and that actually has to start with you doing it yourself. So we need a movement like the Victory Garden movement, except for that this is the Make America Healthy Again movement. A really inspiring thing is, in the Victory Garden movement, 20 million novice Americans in the first year were producing 40% of the produce that America consumed. So we can absolutely do this. We can absolutely turn this around, and we can absolutely make America healthy again.
Thank you, Marjorie. Now, we've got two concerns here. And so my workflow is going to start as a double. We don't usually double the workflow, but this is a workflow, so we're going to use this guy over here. I hate the way these come. Where's my color that I like for this? Why did you get rid of my good color? That, I think, is the color we want. And we want this to be, and we want this to be thicker. And we want this to be larger. Okay. Now the question I have is, that's not my question. The question I have is, I really like Georgia, so let's use Georgia. Can I successfully grow most of my own produce? And I'm going to take this down just one, so it stays in the ring. The other is, do I really need to grow my own produce? So those are my twin questions. Now, how do we answer something like this? And I'm going to check my chat because I really would like some audience here. At least I'm in the audience now. That's better than it was. Well, let's work with this side first, because this is a more interesting side. And again, I can put these on this way, which is why I like to use octagons when I'm doing this kind of thing. I'm going to ask for how much land do I need? She didn't give a number, but I simply may not have the land. And the reason you have to ask how much land you need is you have to know how much you're going to get. And you eat a lot. One day we can do cost outs for food. These are done mostly by conservative politicians. Usually when somebody says X amount of dollars is not, you can't eat well on X amount of dollars. And somebody will come along and say, I do it, here's how, and they'll give you a cost out. This is what I buy, this is what it comes to in the store. And cost outs have a lot of weaknesses, mostly because you might not like the food, or the stores in your area don't have the same kind of prices, or you have to go to several different markets to get the things you want. So cost outs have problems. But I've done them a number of times on my own groceries, and I've had times when I've had to have a very close budget, especially when I was much younger. So I got in the habit of knowing how much food I eat. So I can pretty much measure back. For example, in this house, I eat 2 to 2.5 pounds of carrots a week. If I had a family of 4, I would multiply that by 3, because I think there are some diseconomies of scale going on, economies of scale, or even 3.5, that's 7 pounds of carrots a week. Now, a person who eats 7 pounds of carrots a week doesn't buy any lettuce. Lettuce doesn't keep. It's just the filler for salad. Why not just have the carrot sticks? But I can make those. Carrots go in soup. Carrots get shredded up and go in coleslaw when I can shred carrots again. Carrots go all kinds of places. That's why they get eaten. They're very useful and they taste good. So we're going to use me as the guinea pig. So this is going to have some methodological weakness. So it's how much land do I need to produce and what we're going to do is we're going to figure that below a certain number you're going to get less. So we're going to start with a reasonable and modest amount of land. And so what we're going to do is figure out how much produce does a 20 by 25 foot backyard produce. And this in turn is going to have, let me get another one of these. Thank you. Get up here, we can edit. Going to have storage and preservation issues. How much does 25? You're going to have storage and preservation issues and we're also going to have initial costs, and we're going to have, I'm going to get this back in and get this moved. Cost of land, initial startup costs, and we are going to have what you don't get. And I'm going to change the color on this. That's yellow. That's going to be a different shade of green, because that's muddy. And this is going to be it. That's not going to be there. Initial startup costs. And over here, that's not what I want. Okay, so this is how we're going to look at this. I'm going to move this because I should. Probably something more like this. That's going to be, I'm going to put this here. It doesn't quite mix. Now over here, we have a different issue. And this is, and I'm going to change the color again. Do I have a pale gray? Yes. The chart was gray, so it's gray here. And another one, thank you. What does it measure? Okay. So, what we want to do is follow this workflow. And the one on the left looks shorter, but we're going to do the one on the right first. Now, I live in Georgia. We can start anywhere on here. We can do two different searches. The first search we probably want to do is looking at some of what we cannot grow in Georgia. I live in Georgia. If you live in New York, more power to you. If you live somewhere else, that's fine. But I live in Georgia. So I want to know if I can grow oranges in Georgia or if I can grow apples in Georgia. And this is going to be a loose phrase. I'm going to assume I'm going to get cooperative extension and I can kind of do my growing oranges. And that is not, I lost my color again. Why do you do this to me? There we are. I'm going to grow oranges, and I'm going to try to grow them in Georgia. And I'm in Atlanta is north central Georgia. And I want to do the same thing for apples, because I like apples. There's a big bowl of fruit sitting in my fridge right now. What's the first thing I ask for when I break my wrist? Apples. And we can run this in Google. Let me get my green back. That's not what we want. We want this over here. That's the correct color. Thank you. A and D. And we're going to run this as a Google search and kind of evaluate the sources as they come in. That would be an example. If I were a different kind of person, I'd want avocados. Chayotes. Lots of things that I probably cannot grow. But we use oranges and apples as an example. Now, people do use, sometimes some people buy a fresh pineapple every week. Can you grow that locally? Now this is, let's get Google up and we can try this. I'm just going to stick with oranges and apples. But I'm going to take my sweater off because I'm hot. Okay, I'm sorry about that. I was just really hot. And we're going to put in Georgia. We're going to hope that they take the state and not the country. And growing oranges. I could say growing citrus, but I want oranges. I don't even really want grapefruits. But I mean, I go to the store and buy oranges. Citrus fruit for southern coastal Georgia, UGA extension. Move over citrus, move over peaches. The citrus industry is now booming. Georgia's rural center squeezing into rural Georgia, the state's citrus industry. Georgia, citrus varieties and history. Okay, lots of choices. So we start. Now, I don't live in southern coastal Georgia. But we have a PDF which we can embiggen. Oh, this is beautiful. Citrus fruits for southern and coastal Georgia. Citrus plants are very versatile around the home and may be used as individual specimens, hedges, or container plants. Their natural beauty and ripe fruits make them attractive additions to the South Georgia home scene. Now, I don't live in South Georgia. I live, and I can usually find DeKalb on the map. I'm up in DeKalb County. Where is DeKalb County? There's DeKalb County, right? There is Fulton County, there's DeKalb. This is where I live, up in Zone C. Cold hardy varieties that receive recommended care may grow successfully in the coastal and extreme southern areas of the state, and to a lesser degree in northern locations. Areas where citrus are best adapted within the state are shown in Figure 1. Figure 1. Citrus is best adapted for Zone A. With adequate cold protection, hardy selections may be grown in Zone B. Citrus can be grown in lower Zone C, but extensive cold protection will be needed in some years. I'm way up in the middle of Zone C. I don't think we can grow citrus in Georgia. This answered my question. We do have citrus, but it's much further south. So let's try the apples, shall we? We'll just put the apples in where the oranges were. Okay, Home Garden Apples UGA Cooperative Extension. Again, this is like really useful. And let's get the PDF and embiggen it. Apples are adapted to most areas of Georgia, although the northern half of the state's zones 1, 2, and 3, that's me right here. Columbus is the very bottom of Zone 3. I used to live in Columbus. I don't see Atlanta here, though are best suited for more conventional apple varieties. You could have a success in the southern half of Georgia with adapted varieties. Regardless of where you live, if you are not willing to provide timely care for your trees and fruit, then you might be happier in years to come if you choose plants that require less care. And you have to have plenty of sunlight. Pick an area where the trees will be in the sun most of the day. The early morning sun is particularly important because it dries the dew from the leaves. Although apple trees will grow well in a wide range of soil types, a deep soil ranging in texture from sandy loam to sandy clay loam is preferred, so no sticky soil. It needs to be well drained. Apple trees will not thrive in soil that is poorly drained. The roots will die in areas of poor drainage, resulting in growth and eventual tree death. Apple trees will also perform poorly on droughty soils. Shoot growth can be stunted. Most fruit plants, including apples, grow best where the soil is near 6.5 pH. That's a logarithmic scale. Since the natural pH of most Georgia soils is below this level, you will need to incorporate lime before planting to raise the pH to the desired level. Okay. And these are the varieties for the different zones. Ginger golds you could grow. And they are not an all-purpose apple, they are a dessert apple. And they are a summer apple. Most of these are going to come out in the summer. Most apples are a summer fruit. And here you've got more. Down here, they're doing them kind of as apple varieties recommended for home use in different zones in Georgia. And they go through this a lot. And I don't know what the pollination code is. But you can grow a lot of your apples here. You can grow stamens, but not this far south. Stamens are a cold weather apple. They're very good, but they're the wrong zone. Mutsus, Fujis, Jonagolds. I don't know what the pollination codes mean. But things like a Jonagold or a Rome Beauty will ripen all the way to October. So you have to kind of be aware of that. And I don't know what the pollination codes are. I think it may mean what trees you need. Okay, that's number 4 in this table. That's pollination code. Varieties followed by a common letter bloom at approximately the same time. Since most apple varieties are self-unfruitful but require pollen from another variety to set fruit, because apples are clones. That's why they are self-unfruitful. Apples are grown from graft. Dessert-eating apples are grown from clones. If you were just growing apples to make hard cider or vinegar, you could grow anything. But you want tasty apples, they all grow they're all cloned. Since most apple varieties are self-unfruitful, plant 2 or more varieties that have the same letter so fruit will set as a result. Stamen, Mutsu, and Jonagold have sterile pollen and should not be used as a pollen source for other varieties. Therefore, plant at least 2 other varieties with any or all of these varieties. So you get your choice here. And you can pick what you want. And I don't know what a non-spur apple tree is. I don't think I really need to know. They have a lot of choices. So it doesn't say how far apart the trees have to be, but I could have a couple of apple trees. So apples are a yes. Okay, my garden can have apple trees. So we know that I can get apples, yes, oranges, no, probably no avocados, no chayotes, but so it's no oranges, yes, apples. So I can have a couple of apple trees. I have to have 3 of them. I hope I have enough room. But that's going to be what I do with my extra 5 by 20 feet of garden. It's going to be apples. So, another thing we have to do now is draw the garden. You knew we'd do that sooner or later. Keep going. And we're going to draw our garden. And some rows have to be 2 to 3. Okay, the first 5 feet is 5 by 20. This is where the apples are going to be. My little orchard. And I'm going to have 2 trees. And I may get summer apples, winter apples, whatever. But there's my apple orchard. Right there. And we can figure out the yield for the trees, too. We have to do that. Since we've got the apples worked on, I'm going to get us back to 100% in a moment. Okay. We're going to want, that's not what I want. This is what I want. I'm drawing arrows. We're going to want the trees. We're going to want to know how many apples we get, because that's one of the first yields I'm going to be looking for. Now, in this house right now, I can go through 20 pieces of apples in a week. That's about 5 pounds of fruit a week. If all I ate was apples, there would probably be 20 of them, and that weighs in at about, I'd say 5 to 6 pounds. And I'm not eating avocados, but I'm eating tons of apples. So we're going to need a search. I'm going to put this color back. We're going to need a search to find out yield for an apple tree. We're going to have 2 apple trees going, so this is, again, we're going to hope we hit a lot of cooperative extension stuff. We're going to see how many apples we get. You could do any number of things. You could try this yourself at home with just about any product you want to grow in your garden. Yield. Apple trees. Okay. This is Stark Brothers, which is in the south. Estimated yield for fruit trees. Okay. And I don't know where they have the pounds, but we could get pounds to the bushel. Convert bushels to pounds. Bushels of apples to pounds. All right. A bushel of apples is roughly 42 to 48 pounds. Okay. So we'll say 45 pounds to a bushel. Sound good? Okay, so my dwarf tree will produce, my semi-dwarf will produce 5 to 10, and my standard will produce 10 to 20. Okay. So we're going to do the math. I'm assuming we have 2 standard apple trees growing in my yard. And by the way, it'll take a number of years for those apple trees to produce fruit. That's another problem. If I go out and buy some apple saplings today at the nursery and put them in my imaginary backyard, I don't get apples the first season. Now, we have, let's average at 15. 15 bushels times 2 trees, remember, times 45 pounds. Equals, okay, I'm going to need Google here too, but that's okay. And let's do 15 times 2 times 45 equals 1,350 pounds of apples once these trees are mature. When my trees hit maturity. And if we divide 1,350 by 5, by 52, get 675 pounds of apples a week. But that's not right. That's by 52. By 52, we get 25.9 pounds of apples a week. In other words, I get more apples than I can use. And I'm going to have to do something to keep them. Either sell them, I can either sell them, I can buy a cider press, I can dehydrate them, I might need a controlled atmosphere storage room because that is how we get our apples at the market. But I can definitely do this on apples. I can definitely plant some apple trees, and if I have the success of a commercial grower, which I probably won't have, again, I could definitely do this for apples, but I might have to wait till a few years. 3 years to fruit, 2 to 5 years. My ship will come in 2 to 5 years, and then I will have more apples than I know what to do with, and I will have some storage costs, but that's great. I can have enough apples. So that would work. It would work for having a couple of apple trees. Okay, so this worked out really well for a change. Patience is a virtue. Of course, I don't know about the other crops. And again, you really have to like apples, and I do. They're like my favorite food, so having a couple of apple trees would be a divine thing if I had the land. Now, we need to do the other stuff. And that's where the fun starts, because we're going to need, we actually want yield for a 100-foot row. But that's not here nor there. And the way we do this is we look for a yield for a 100-foot row and divide it by, I've been getting some better ones in here. I just don't like the way this looks. Well, you're going to be looking at it, you know. You got to have it nice. There. So what we're going to be looking at is yield and vegetable seeds. I think this does need to be in quotes. And we're going to put an and again, semi-known item. This is the kind of stuff you find on Google because you want to get to that cooperative extension stuff. They handle agriculture. The seed companies are somewhat good. I didn't know, for example, we could grow apples. I could grow apples in Atlanta. I don't see anybody doing it, but that doesn't mean it doesn't get done. So, we're going to need our Google again. Thank you, Google. And we're going to do vegetable seeds and yields. Go. Container-friendly vegetables. Okay, vegetable seeds and plants, burpee seeds. If this doesn't take, I can type in yield per acre, and they'll also have the 100-foot row, which we can divide by 5. Okay. Vegetable Growers Information Library at Johnny Seeds. Let's go there and take a look. I think they'll have what we want. Okay. I don't see key growing information for all vegetable crops. Okay. I'm actually looking at yield for carrots, but let's try the carrots and see. Okay, we again are going to have to line the soil here in Georgia. They need 2 feet, single rows 16 to 24 inches apart. One meter is 33 seeds. $750 seeds sows 25 feet. Okay. Let's try again. I'm just playing around with the wording because I know there's a chart of these somewhere. Okay. This is from the University of Vermont. Transplanted vegetable crop yield chart. Expected vegetable garden yields. Production data of produce per 100-foot row. Remember, we have a 20-foot row. Let's see what I got. This is per acre, but it's not per 100-foot row, which we need to work. We need a row. Okay, this is the Louisiana State University Ag Center. And here we have lots of these. Okay, carrots, a 100-foot row of carrots will yield 30 pounds. Oh boy. Okay, so carrots will yield 150 pounds. Divide that by 5, it's 30 pounds per 20-foot row. Now, conceivably, how many pounds of carrots do I need in a year? We found a site that has some of this. And again, I trust the ag schools. Everybody trusts something, I trust the ag schools. So for carrots, we played around with this a bit. I'm going to check my squawk box. Whom am I torturing tonight? Okay. Now I know how many pounds of carrots I eat in a year. So we can do this pretty easily. 52 weeks times 2 pounds per week. I consume 104 pounds of carrots a year. Sometimes actually a bit more. Now, we look here. Carrots are 150 pounds for a 100-foot row. We have a 20-foot row. So carrots are, again, think about this, 150 divided by 5 equals, yep, there. Divided by 5 equals 30 pounds per 30 pounds per 20-foot row. And if I wanted to skimp a little, These rows have to be 2 feet apart. So if I wanted to keep me in carrots, we could plant 3 rows of carrots, use 6 by 20 for the carrots, and get me 120 pounds of carrots. A few extra pounds of carrots isn't going to matter. I can always find a use for carrots. My turtle eats them, I eat them. There's lots of dishes you can make with carrots. So we're going to plant 4 rows of carrots because that will get us 120 pounds of carrots. 4 rows. Eight by 20. Okay, so this leaves me with 7 by 20 to play around with. So far we've taken care of a lot of my produce needs. This is working out way better. But it doesn't really work out way better. Okay, what else do I want to grow in my garden? Well, I'm learning that I have to store, I often get excess and need to store it. So let's see whose this is. This is CEFS NCSU. Okay. And here we have a lot of things of this nature. Let's say I wanted, I'm going to make this bigger so I can see what I have. I would like winter squash. Okay, arugula, basil, beets, broccoli, cabbage, cantaloupes, carrots, cauliflower, cilantro, cucumbers, dill, edamame, eggplant, fennel, garlic, green onions, kale, kohlrabi, mizuma, mustard greens, pak choy, parsley, snap peas, potatoes, salad mix, southern peas, spinach, storage, summer squash, sweet corn, winter squash. Okay. Between row spacing in inches is 5 feet. Within row spacing in inches is 2 feet for the hills, 5 feet for that. You're going to get 1 row. These are big winter squashes, but they keep well. If I'm going to grow vegetables, winter squash is probably my choice. But there's 5 feet within their 5 foot spacing, I get 1 row. Okay, what's my yield? Yield for 100-foot row. And I assume that's yield in pounds. Okay, winter squash is 115 pounds. 115 pounds per 115 pounds per 100-foot row. So we go back to here and we can do this. Okay, winter squash. We can do the winter squash one. Okay, this is winter squash. I say I want to grow some, I don't know, acorns, Hubbards. I like Hubbard, but delicata. And my winter squash yield is, okay, 115 winter squash. And I'm only going to get 1 row in that last space. £115 per 100 feet. Now remember, we have to do some dividing here. So let me get Google up again. 115 divided by 5 equals. So I have 23. I have equals 23 pounds. Oops. 23 pounds of winter squash. Now, winter squash is very much like carrots. When I go to buy a chunk, I like it to be 2.5 to 3 pounds in weight. So 23 divided by 2 equals, this isn't good, folks. And I'm going to pretend that's a 24. 12 weeks of the year I can have winter squash. And it does keep, so it is storable. These are all very storable foods here. This is your winter squash. It's a Hubbard. 1 row. 1 by 20. Actually, this has got to be 5 by 20, so this is 7 by 20, and this is probably not the best use of garden space. So I could produce a substantial amount of my produce. I could get enough carrots to make it through the year and enough apples. The rest of it, I'd have to still buy. And you can play around with this and I could have fewer carrots and more of something else. But it's kind of, with a decent sized backyard, it's kind of possible. Not quite, but kind of possible. And of course, there's no oranges, and I'd still have to buy a lot of other stuff. So it's kind of meh. If you want to think of it that way, it's pretty, let me find my pen, meh, but it's doable. And of course, we are going to have storage and preservation issues. The apples will have to be dehydrated, controlled atmosphere, and all the rest. For 2 to 5 years, there aren't going to be any apples. The carrots can be frozen. I'm going to need a chest freezer. But I'm not looking to even look at the chest freezer because I don't have land. I'd have to move to buy a house to get a big enough yard, to get a big enough plot to grow what I'm growing. So let's look at what houses cost in the Atlanta metro area. And we're going to need a long arrow here because we're going to look at the cost. Okay, long arrow. Actually, even better. Big arrow coming all the way down. We're going to go to the end of the arrow and we're going to look at what it would cost. We are going to look at what it would cost to buy the land, the house with the sufficient land, because I don't have the land right now. That is a small detail, folks. A very small detail. But I'm going to need some land, which means I'm going to have to move, because I don't nearly have the land. And doing this with, and we can obviously see if this is what happens when you've got 20 by 25 feet. Even under that, you definitely can't produce enough. It just doesn't happen. Unfortunately, it just doesn't happen. So, I'm going to make these smaller if you're curious. There we are. We can look at home prices in Atlanta, in the Atlanta metro area. Home prices. And we're going to look at Atlanta because this is where I live, and what would it cost for me to have enough land to do this? And I knew this would be hard. I didn't think it would be as successful as it turned out, that I could produce enough apples to keep me in apples after 2 to 5 years. And that it would cost me, and that I could keep myself in carrots for a year. and have some winter squash left over. I didn't think I could do that well. We're still not getting all of it by any stretch. So if you have a few little containers, by all means, if it's fun, go do it, but you're not gonna be able to live on that. You're not even gonna come close. So that's your scale question. But then what does this cost? What does this cost to get about halfway there, which is how far I got? Okay. Let's run the search. Home prices in Atlanta. Okay. All right, that's one. Realtor.com. Let's see if they have it. Why is that doing that? Because it is. All right, I'm going to find a better one. Prices and trends. Redfin. Redfin was good also. Let's try Zillow or Redfin. What is going on over there? Somebody's coughing. Somebody's sneezing. That's Ozora. She's on the couch sneezing. Okay. So we're looking over $100,000 to buy a house. And you can see here, we have one for $450,000. You have to make sure it has enough land. This is 4791 square foot lot. It probably is close enough in. It's in Northwest Atlanta. And again, I'm going to be paying I'd be paying $2,800 a month in mortgage to keep this place. So my garden is going to cost me. It's more, and that is more than I pay in rent right now. So to be fair, my garden would cost me how much more than it would cost me to rent? Let's do the cost step. Okay. I'm not going to tell, I can tell you I pay $1,400 a month as rent. Now you all know it. $1,400 equals current rent. So in order to move to a place that would have a big enough garden, I would need, and again, you can play around with this. This is Zillow. This is 45. Okay, so this one, this beauty here that I'm looking at is $2,771 per month. So this is, so my expenses would be minus $1,400 equals $1,371 per month. And assume we have a 6-month growing season in Atlanta. I'm using Google's calculator real quick. Now I could move some out in the country, I suppose, but I don't drive, so that doesn't kind of doesn't work. If this ever gets where it's going, it'll be fine. I can use this one for now. 1371 times, assume a 6-month growing season. I'll be in the house longer. We can figure out how much these wonderful vegetables cost. So my vegetables are going to cost me $8,000. for 120 pounds of carrots and several hundred pounds of apples and 20 pounds of squash. And let's figure out, okay, so that would be an example. And we could do these with any of the houses. We could do it with a less expensive house too. This comes to 8, and you can say my methodology is flawed, but you get the idea. 8, 2, 2, 6. Let's go back and get my yields. Because we did have yields here. Winky, binky, 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 binky. Okay. All right, so we have 120 pounds of carrots, 1,350 pounds of apples, of which I only need a fifth. What I do with the rest of those, who knows? I'd have to sell them. So I'm going to play with this. Let me get back to 100%. Because I'm only going to be able to consume so much. Let's say 5 pounds of apples times 52. Actual amount consumed would be 110 pounds. Okay, so we have total produce. Let me get us back to the front of this map. And again, you can dispute my methodology all day. It's probably flawed, but it's better than nothing. Okay, so just to keep everybody on track here, make sure we're right above this. We have 23 pounds of squash, 120 pounds of apples, of carrots, which should actually get eaten, and 102 pounds of apples. My little agriculture project has yielded, we can figure out how much this stuff costs per pound based on the cost of the land, the change in cost of the land. So 105 for, okay, 245 pounds of produce. My land produces 200 of apples, squash, and carrots. And we know that this is going to take, and it's going to cost me $8,226 for the land. And we could pick different ones. We could pick a less expensive one if we wanted. Some are more expensive. Some don't have any land or hardly any land. I think this home, that home is reasonable with some land on it. Let's see what this one is like. This one is on a 5,000 square foot lot. Okay, I'll tell you what. Let's round this down to 8,000. It's going to cost me $8,000 to produce 245 pounds of produce, before we get into the niceties of buying a chest freezer and doing a few other things. So, $8,000 divided by 245 pounds of produce. Oops. £245 of produce equals, I'm going to get Google again. My produce is selling for $32.60 a pound. In the words of a certain agent force commercial, that's a commitment. And we want to see if that commitment is worth making. So remember, we were back at the other end of this. Remember back here, the beginning? We had a chart. And it looks dire. It says all the nutrition has gone out of our food. But our friend here does not say where this chart comes from, who produced it, when, what's it covering. You throw a chart at me without any citation, I'm going to question that, especially if producing food, enough food for me to eat meaningfully. And I didn't even get all my produce, but I got a big substantial amount. Being able to grow my own produce is that expensive. And some of this is economies of scale. Farms have scale, that's why our produce is cheap. But where does this chart come from? And I'm going to open the chart, Control O. We're going to take a look. And this is the chart, and this is what she found. Now, I have no idea, but one thing I do notice is mineral density diseases per 100,000 people. Okay, I don't know when this chart got made, but let's say about now, 2020, asthma is at 500 or 600 per 100,000. That means 6% of people have asthma. Obesity, they have at 6% again. Where is this? This is a very strange chart. Cancer is 6%, 6 to 8%. That's what it is. This is 360 per 100,000 people is 3.6%. Somebody didn't look at the units on the right side of this chart. And then these are milligrams per 100 gram of different things that have never been, some of them have never been that high. They've all seemed to go down. And certainly people had bone deformities before 1960. I don't know where they're getting this from. And people died young of infectious diseases. So again, I'm not sure how good this chart is. But there are ways of finding out. And what we're going to do is go to Google Images. Because we can upload this chart and find a look-alike. And maybe it will tell us where it came from. So we're going to open this, upload a file, in it goes, away we go. And if you look carefully, you will find this. Why am I not finding this tonight? No exact matches. Now, I've seen this before. This worked the last time out. Okay. I'm going to try images.bing. Maybe different search engine will work better. And I've got another place to look if this doesn't work. There we are. And we upload. Browse is my favorite word in the English language. And we got a bunch of these. I don't see my chart, which has decided to vanish. Okay, this is annoying when stuff works one day and doesn't work the next. Oh, shoot. There, we will get him one way or the other. Okay. Because there is a way to get here. This worked in rehearsal and it's not working now. This is very strange. Let me see if I have it bookmarked because I think I did. No. Okay, we can try tin eye. Somebody can't type tonight and is getting a little frustrated. I'm going to check my chat because I might as well torture myself. This is one of those nights when you just do that. Okay. I know this is out there. Okay. Okay. I'm going to cheat this because somebody has to. This is the original chart, and it showed up much more nicely before. I'm going to download this, and we're going to open it. Oh, I don't want to sign up. So we're just going to live with it. Okay. This is August Stunning, the man who did the chart, and this is what showed up when I did the search a few days ago on Thursday. And he runs a company. We can find out more about him. August Stunning, co-founder, Eco Research LLC. And you can see he's into eco-ag solutions. And he's talking about getting brine. And these are food minerals per 100 grams of soil. Not the food, the soil. And again, there wasn't that much there to start with. And it's been going down. And minerals go down, diseases go up. And again, he's not a doctor. And then he puts them all together. Apples contained iron. Vitamins are not a solution. And I don't know what this was. There's the chart. There's the original. And you'll see what he wants to do is go to the Persian Gulf and put the brine back into the soil. This is mineralized agriculture, the future of human health in the Persian Gulf. So this is an argument for fertilizing your soil with brine. Bingo! They do, and this shows you the desalination plants and the Persian Gulf. This is not Georgia. This is not New Jersey. And there is, again, in some places, they have to do desalination. Environmental impacts of seawater desalination at Arabian Gulf case study. So this is what he's talking about, is putting brine into the soils of the Arabian Gulf. And we do not know what soil he is talking about here. We don't know if, and we don't know, we don't know. And I don't know if that's true either. We could actually test the apple, the iron in apples. .2 milligrams, okay. And it varies by variety, apparently. I don't know if apples really ever had 4.3 grams of iron in them. It's very hard to make up your iron if you're iron deficient. But anyway. What we probably would want to do, because again, this isn't telling me that my soil is this way. This is soil in the Persian Gulf where he's trying to sell the brine. And he's not a doctor, so again, when you do put fertilizer in the soil, you don't demineralize it. That's the other chart you did not see. So, if you have questions about soil fertility, the soil in your backyard is no more special than the soil on a farm. You would probably want to do another search. The chart is not about food nutrition. So we know that our friend the chart, let's put one of these in here. Boonk and what? How am I size-wise? 100, I need 100. So the chart is about soil in the Middle East. Okay, so it's not about food. So we've got an issue here. Now, if you were really concerned about soil fertility where you live, there's a very simple Google search you could do. We're going to go in the other direction because I feel like it. I'm going to put us back at 100% so we can figure out where we are. Go this way. And what we would want to do is, let me clean up my mess, clean up an outline. We could look for, and you just put your, so again, you want to get those nice cooperative extension documents. And yes, this has been Ag Night at the fair. And we're going to look for soil fertility. SOIL. Hey, somebody didn't turn the caps lock off. Fertility. And Georgia. Because I'm going to start my expensive backyard garden. I better make sure my soil is good. Because who's to say my soil is good here in the city of Atlanta? Okay. Let's get Google up. And again, this has been all Google tonight because it's an ag search. We're going to be looking at soil fertility in Georgia. Georgia. Okay, this is for forage systems. This is small farms and smart soil and water management. Okay, that's one. We're not doing forage crops. Soil in Georgia, Georgia Conservation Commission. So let's have a look. Okay, water management for livestock. Where's the soil? Okay. If you operate a small farm, you are not alone. More than half of the farms in the U.S. generate less than $10,000 in gross cash farm income annually. According to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, fewer than 10% of farms generate more than $250,000 in annual income. Operating on limited acreage and often limited financial resources, you need to wisely manage your farm's soil and water resources to prevent severe erosion and nutrient runoff that can cause long-term harm to your farm's productivity. Soils have formed from the interaction of climate, organisms, parent materials, relief, and time. Improving soil conditions not only improves crop and grass productivity, it also improves water infiltration and decreases runoff and erosion. Consider some or all of the best soil management practices. Composting, adding organic matter such as leaves to enhance soil, is a long-practiced farming tradition. Recycling organic waste enriches the soil and improves soil structure so that it will hold more water. Low-till or no-till planting. Leaving a crop residue rather than disturbing all of the soil when planting can increase the amount of organic material. It also improves soil compaction, prevents wind and water erosion. Cover cropping. Adding a cover crop between or with a cash crop can reduce soil evaporation. Depending on the crop chosen, the roots of cover crops can break up compacted soil. Cover crops can protect the soil from erosion and add nutrients such as nitrogen and provide a crop residue that adds organic material. This is a crop you're not going to eat, you're just going to plow it under. Rotating crops. Growing different types of crops in the same field in sequential seasons can improve structure as well as fighting pests, preventing overgrazing, which we don't have any critters to graze. Okay, soil in Georgia. Georgia has separate, okay, so again, Embiggen. Georgia has suffered terribly. Will this embiggen for me? No, it won't. Somebody did a really bad job with web design. That's not supposed to happen. And that's very easy to fix. Even an amateur like me knows how to fix it. Georgia has suffered terribly from the washing away of its topsoil. Millions of acres of productive land were degraded in the 18th and 19th centuries. In the mid-1930s, a federal law established the Soil Conservation Service to carry out programs to reduce erosion. In 1937, the Georgia General Assembly authorized the establishment of soil conservation districts, later called soil and water conservation districts. Okay. And you can get your soil tested, which is even better. Let's see what else we got. Healthy land, science for Georgia. Soil health. Let's grab another one quickly. Our land is a valuable part of the environment, how we use it and take care of it. Healthy, and of course, soil is not just dirt. It is part of the biome. It's composed of minerals, organic matter, air, and water. Healthy soils, sustainable land use. Create more nutritious food by storing and cycling nutrients. Protect our waterways by preventing erosion and leaching. Improve health through green spaces. This shows you what healthy soil does. Things you don't want to do. This is not just farmland, but also lawns, our green spaces, and our placement of infrastructure, roads, and buildings. Prevent erosion in your yard by planting plants, trees, and shrubs near slopes, not grass. Cover bald spots in your yard by utilizing mulch. Consider a water-wise landscape. We do get droughts here. Compost your food waste. Not bad. Okay. And again, they're going to, there's even a soil survey you can look at. So that's kind of good. So you will have to contribute. You will have to think about your soil quality if you garden. The Web Soil Survey provides soil data and information produced by the National Cooperative Soil Survey. It is operated by the USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service. Let's hope all this stays funded, and provides access to the largest natural resource information system in the world. The NRCS has soil maps and data available online for more than 95% of the nation's counties, and anticipates having 100% in the future. So this is the map. And if I wanted to find state and county, state Georgia, DeKalb County. Georgia has 120 counties. It's got like more counties than any other state. View. And this is Georgia, DeKalb County. Georgia, and I want DeKalb County. It's not showing it, which is kind of interesting, but you can get this stuff. Okay, I'm going to come back inside and drop my curtain. I'm going to check to see if anybody's Oh, hello! Oh, yeah. I mean, the chart is suspect because it's in the Middle East. I didn't even see you come in. Thank you. I gave up. I sometimes do that. Okay, there is and I'm going to get his name. Okay, I think what we kind of come to conclude is that Marjorie's data is not great. She's using a chart that was designed for soils in the Middle East. She is The numbers don't, when you run the numbers, they don't fly. And you could run them different ways. I mean, I ran them one way, you could probably run them another and get the same issue. There's a reason we buy our food in the supermarket. And you're not going to, I don't think you're going to poison yourself. And if you are, there's nothing you can do about it. You're kind of stuck. Thank you so much for watching. And don't forget, you can catch me live on Twitch.